you could have one conversation that 100 times your investment in a year with your NSRA fees would save you that, just by having one conversation around a round table like you just mentioned.
People had to realize, do I have the right culture? You want it to be a place where they can come in and have fun for their 8 hours or 8.5 hours, or whatever their shift is. Our competition is not another shoe store. It's where that consumer wants to spend their money.
Mr. Mark Denkler, it is a pleasure to have you here on the Footwear Retailer today.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Pete, for inviting me.
Yeah, Mark, we've known each other for quite some time now, and just to be upfront with everybody listening, I'm actually on the board of directors with the National Shoe Retailers Association as well, and do some coaching within the organization, write in the trade publication. We'll get into those couple of different things in a bit. But from your perspective, Mark, if somebody's listening to the podcast here today and has no idea what the National Shoe Retailers Association is about, what they've done, give us the synopsis, give us sort of the global of what it's all about and why somebody who owns a footwear store, in my opinion, needs to be involved, but would want to be involved.
Yeah. We're 100. We were started in 1912, so we're 113 years come April 4th, I believe. Even though it's called National Shoe Retailers Association, that kind of makes it seem like it's United States, but at some point we added our Canadian brethren, including yourself, and we have 2 other Canadian board members. So it is a truly North American, I guess maybe English speaking, even though we have Browns, which is in Quebec, and I shouldn't say just English speaking, French and English speaking, but we don't have any Mexican retailers or anything like that. The organization is here only to help members. So when I go to people ask me a question, I said, I work for you guys. My only job is to help you guys. If you need consulting for like I've told people to contact you or one of our board members for mentoring. I had a store the other day and they're just like, I inherited this business. We didn't have a computer system. It was pen and paper, and I'm trying to make a go at it. But then introduced her to a couple board members, sat down with her and gave her some ideas on what she should be doing, maybe looked over her brand selection. So there is kind of some consulting. We'll have a next gen class next week, kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But, one of the people there, he's just like, man, can I just sit down with you and use some of your experience? Had a shoe store for 27 years. And then I was in banking for 11 before that. So just using in banking, I was in audit. And then I went into lending. So, I have that audit experience, but also have that lending experience. And I know you've run organizations, but one of my primary jobs when I was in the bank was lending to companies taking over other companies. So it was, how can you increase sales or maintain sales, but decrease cost and things like that so you can pay back the leverage debt you have. So, but I've been on the board since 2005, I believe. So this would be my 20th anniversary. So I was chairman of the board when our prior president, Chuck Schuyler, called me to say he's retiring and suggested I take over his job. So flattered, told him, give me a week to think about it. But after talking to my wife that night, we decided that was the thing to do. And, my whole business is to help retailers. So if we have contracts that we work with, we get vendor partners. We have a credit card program that a single store, double store, or 2 stores, 3 stores, they might not be able to get the same discounts we do. We get $600 million in credit card processing, shipping rates, same thing. We use the leverage of our 2,700 stores to get good shipping discounts for everybody. And so those are the things that we could help you with. Because of laws, we can't offer all those benefits in Canada, especially credit card and shipping, because they're totally different transportation laws and banking laws. But then we have other partners that we work with that will help you with insurance, actually right now, one of my biggest projects is trying to get health insurance for the U.S. market. Another one, we have partners that can help you with digital creation and marketing. We have one that will do service contracts that will give guarantees on your shoes. And so basically, somebody buys a shoe, they pay maybe $10 extra for insurance, and that gives them a guarantee on the shoes. And so we have lots of different partners like that. We try to do strategic partners. We can't be the experts at everything. So we
Exactly.
find the people that can help us offer our members, these discounts or things that they can't get by themselves. And I think the biggest thing that I had was that, is the networking. I mean, it's just totally invaluable. I still remember meeting you. I don't know where it was, but we were at a round table at one of our footwear forums, I think maybe 8 years ago or so. And you introduced yourself, and I'm like, man, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. And, took me, I think 40 years to get you on the board. That was good to get you, but it's just, we talked, we had an issue we talked about, and I was impressed with what your knowledge is. And so a lot of it is networking. So we provide a conference, footwear forum, we call it. And that is one of the things that we do in there. There's times to, about 6.5 hours that you can be with vendors looking at product. We have education. And then it's a network. But so it's meeting other retailers and going through the same struggles, and or successes, and telling other people about that, shout it from the highest mountain, if there's something good going on. Not that you ask everybody, how's business? Most people go, oh, it's great. Then you get down the nitty gritty. Well, we're only 2% down, our margins were bad, but your friends, we're not competitors. Like if I still had my stores, you're in Canada, I'm in the United States. There's no reason we shouldn't share information. So there's a lot
Mark,
of information.
one of the things when we go to those, I mean, I sit at tables with my direct competitors.
Right. Yeah.
A couple of the other people that come to those regularly, we are direct competitors. Like they are the closest shoe stores to me.
Correct. Yeah.
And we still share that stuff. The idea here is that we need to build the industry, and we need to build better footwear stores throughout. There's an abundance of opportunity. And, when we go to these different events, it's just, that is the real catalyst for me. I mean, you mentioned it yourself. A lot of the programs that are offered that are sort of those corporate programs you mentioned off the bat aren't available in Canada. That's still okay with us. There are still a lot of Canadian vendors that come to the NSRA events and are part of the NSRA because they see these other values like that. You could have one conversation that 100 times your investment in a year with your NSRA fees would save you that just by having one conversation around a round table, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. I mean, it's our membership dues are $249 a year. As I said, I got on it. One thing I didn't say, which was primary main mission right now, is education. So at our footwear forum, we have speakers, as well as exhibit time, the networking, but we have speakers to help you talk about, things that you might be interested in. I try to stay fine-tuned with what's going on. We have our group that meets every other Thursday, and I participate in that, so I know what they're going through. So then I can gear speakers. Right after COVID, everybody had a problem hiring employees, maintaining employees. So we actually spent 2 years getting employment experts in how to get your staff to be rock star. I forget the gentleman's name, but how to motivate your employees, how to get the most out of them, how to hire employees. So it's these speakers that we have. And then I go to different shows. I mean, I went to Canada. We didn't do any at the AFA. I didn't do education there, but I was in Chicago at the end of January, and we had an AI component. We had a speaker that worked for Always AI, and he didn't realize it at the time, but I said, hey, you can monetize this if you can make this for shoe stores. It was using cameras to figure out, okay, where people are going, what's their touch point? They're staring at this shoe. They picked this shoe up. How long was somebody waiting before they were acknowledged? How is store count? I mean, all these things that you can use with AI. And I know you're the one who showed me AI a few years ago, but using those tools to better yourself, because you can't be in your store every day. Some people have multiple stores, or if they're traveling, but you can get a report at the end of the night if this gentleman does his work and brings it to fruition. That you could get, okay, we had 80 customers today, you sold 40, and then your system will tell you how much you sold. But it'll let you know, okay, you got 2 people that kind of walked out. They looked at shoes, tried them on, and walked out. They weren't acknowledged. What shoes did they pick up? I told them, I said, well, if you get AI to figure out what size shoe they are, that'd be great, because we all know
We
what.
use a lot of that,
Yeah,
not
but what's
not the
coming later.
size.
Yeah, but the size in which, and I know you use technology to the fullest, and so that's what I
Yeah.
try to do. I'm a delegate of the Expo Riva Shoe Show in Italy, and they have an
Hmm.
innovation village, and I always participate. I'm a judge on that, and I do it so I can bring back these ideas. This is actually something that I saw 3 years ago. It was actually using phones versus cameras at the time, but now with the AI using cameras and be able to detect things. But it was how many people come to your store? Where's the flash points? But now it's evolved into cameras. And this guy's going, you can use your security cameras. It doesn't have to be cameras we install. So there's so many things that we can find. So that was one of our education. And then Atlanta, we're having the AI presentation there with Alan McCloskey, who was the chairman before I was. I was his vice chairman, and he retired. Same with me. Sold his stores, and but loves the industry so much, and he wants to get back. And he like yourself got into AI. We got to figure this out. When I'm looking for the Footwear Forum, all these people are AI. The speaker that spoke 10 years ago, now he's an AI expert. I'm like, okay, I'll just go with what you had before. And I know enough people about AI. You'll be on a panel. And this is another thing. Here we have it in Chicago, we have it in Atlanta, and then we'll have it at our Footwear Forum in April. You'll be on a panel about AI with Alan McCloskey and with Joe Jensen, who's the vice president of retail at Intel, who's really an industry expert. So we'll be able to talk those issues, to get people going. I'm planning a trip, and this morning I went into Chat GPT. Okay, 6 days in Sorrento. How do I, what's the perfect itinerary? And so it's using those things, but there's so many more things that you can use with AI for, as we've gone over. Making job descriptions, hiring, your employee manuals and things. Everything still has to be reviewed, because AI, the open source, is only as good as the
Yeah, it's
information.
never perfect.
Right? It's never perfect, but we try to stay up on these issues. And guess the biggest buzzword is AI right now. So we're going to have 3 different classes within 3 months on AI.
That's great. And Alan's going to be a guest on this show as well. We
Okay.
just confirmed. We haven't recorded it yet, but he's going to be a guest down the road here too, on the Footwear Retailer. So excited to have him on as well.
Yeah, but I mean, he was former chairman. He was a retailer of the year. I was a retailer of the year. So we've been recognized for being strong retailers. And we've given back to the NSRA. So you hear these conversations. I remember once I said we had a education thing, and it was on finance, and being a banker for 11 years and doing $1 billion loans myself. Okay,
Yep.
you can't teach me too much about finance, but the one thing I learned from that conference is, you can put your credit card machine through the internet, and your time will go from 13 seconds over the phone to 1 second approval on the internet. Well, on my big days, that was enough. That was the key takeaway that I took.
And every time we go and learn at one of these things, you're always taking away these key things, and they compound to make a better business, right?
Right.
And this is
Yeah.
what we're trying to do with the NSRA, and this is what we're trying to do here on the Footwear Retailer too, is to help people have a better running business, so they can have a better business and a better life, and they can make more money and enjoy the money that they make as well. Mark, what are you
You
seeing?
never stop learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, knowledge I sat in the back, but now I'm in the front seat because I want to learn.
For
Because
sure.
knowledge will make me better. Our competition, the department stores, the big box retailers, all those guys use data like crazy. But we have those tools that we can do, and that's what we try to offer people, to stay up with your competition.
You put on more miles than I know anyone else as far as air miles, going to all these different shows, over to Italy a couple of times a year, hitting almost every major show in North America seasonally. It's an amazing amount of travel and talking to people, seeing the things out there, seeing what's new. I used to work in the trade show industry, and one of the things I always loved about the trade show industry when I was there setting all all the different things coming into town up through university was you always saw the latest and greatest and the newest things and all the things that were on the leading edge. What are you seeing out there in the last few shows and the last few things that not only from a product perspective, but what are you seeing where you're seeing, I mean, you talked a little bit about AI, but what else are you seeing where the industry is going, and what shifts are you seeing these days in your travels this season to the shows?
I think it's, as we said, using the best technology that's out there.
Mm.
As we do, and use Loom technology where you
Yeah.
can tape your recording to your managers, or if you're gone on vacation, you can, or if you're in Italy or at a show and you still something comes up, you can just get on your phone and use that. And it's always bad, writing a long note. You could do a 4-minute video presentation where your thoughts are there versus, okay, I got to write this. I'm doing it on my phone because I'm traveling, but doing that, but using the latest technology. And that even goes to shoes. What's the biggest trend in shoes right now is hands free. Kizik came out with it a few years ago. Then they were bought by, I believe, Nike. And then Skechers did it. I know another brand has come up with it. That's kind of the big thing is the hands free, especially for us. I mean, independent footwear people, they work with people. You're sit and fit most of the time. I know your stores aren't, but I'm sure your people give the advice.
For sure.
But when you're sitting there, and I mean, I'm in South Florida. My stores were to the older clientele, mature clientele,
Hmm.
as we would say. But
Yeah,
yeah, they couldn't bend over. I mean, one of my best sellers was a 2-foot shoehorn, so they could
I
get their
love it.
shoes. But if you can now get that in and then give them the stability and it stays on their foot, then you're way ahead. So I think that that's what I'd say is the latest technology. And then just waterproofing, trying to be more sustainable. When I go to Europe, that's all the talk is sustainability. Oh, I'm making shoes out of plastic bottles or this or that. The United States and Canada aren't there yet. I kind of tell people we're about 5 years behind what's going on in Europe. But those are big buzzwords, and you hear that from the younger generation. As you and I are, I'm a baby boomer. I don't know where you are, but the generations, that's important to them, and so it is. As I say, keeping up with technology, because you and I, if we had stores, even though you're in Canada, they might still go and find your website and they'll find that shoe that I don't have, and then they can get it shipped to them right away, where I have to, I got to wait 3 weeks for the manufacturer to send it to me.
Yeah. As we record this, President Trump has outlined a whole bunch of tariffs for cross border. So that's going to be something that we'll have to play, depending on how things go here over the next little while, because it's supposed to come into effect tomorrow. So I know
Yeah.
the Canadian retail listeners, it's a big concern for a lot of stuff. Anything crossing the border up to 25% tariff and going back down as well, not only in footwear, but across our borders for everything. So it's going to be a
Right.
big deal for both countries as we navigate through this major shift here, depending on what the legislation comes in here. But certainly one of the things that is on the mind of many Canadian retailers and other business owners. And I think starting to catch the ear of some of our U.S. friends as well, too, because a lot of the stuff is going to deeply affect the American consumer. And maybe not so much in our industry, but because there's not a ton of Canadian made product, but there's components, and the components,
Yeah.
each time a component crosses the border. So, all this tariff talk is one of the things that I know is a big thing for a lot of the listeners here at least on the Canadian board side of the border at this point in time. We'll see where things line out, but something our industry is definitely going to have to deal with here over the next little while as both. Well, we have, even in Ontario, we're switching, having an election here in Ontario, Canada's biggest
Right.
province, and there's a bunch of things going on there, and all of that, lots of different things happening that are really out of our control at this level. But it's kind of like COVID, where COVID was out of our control. There's nothing we could do with it. We just had to we had to deal with what was dealt to us. And we're coming in along the lines of this too, for both sides of the border, around what tariffs mean for our businesses. Because, the other one is there's a new tariff on everything coming in from China. And even in the
Right.
States, there's a lot of stuff that comes in from China. So, this new sort of view of tariffs, has anybody really been talking about that with regards to the industry? Mark, have you heard much
Yeah,
there?
I mean, I keep up with the FDRA. They work with a lot of more about distributors. They do have some
Yeah.
retailers in there, but that's their biggest thing. Okay, I believe the U.S. used to be about 85% of all of our product came down from China. Now it's about 65. But if you're going to add an extra 10% to that, guess what? I mean, our president ran on fixing the economy, fixing
Yeah.
inflation. It's over 20% the last 4 years. So how do you add 25% in one fell swoop on tariffs? And especially we have a lot of automobile, Detroit's across the border.
Oh my gosh.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of cars made and components made in Canada. So realistically, or even in Mexico, I know that's
Tons.
reprieve for a month, but that's a $30,000 car. How do you add another $7,500 increase to that car? So
Yeah.
as far
Yeah.
as shoes, we will see it some with Chinese product.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I try to find, one of the reasons I do go to Garda is to find shoes from Turkey and Spain and Portugal and
Exactly.
Italy, Germany,
Hmm.
Bulgaria. We've done, but just finding product, new sources, because we do have enough. If the Chinese, it's amazing. 30 years ago, oh, we have our Italian manager is going to China to run the factory. Now you hear, oh, our Chinese factory manager is going to Indonesia or going to Vietnam to manage those factories. Yeah. So, it's
It's
come
amazing.
around, and I did some consulting for the Pisa Chamber of Commerce, and they're like, why is everybody going to China? And this was about 10 years ago, and I told them for 20, 25 years, people have made shoes in China. Those people are skilled. They
For
they
sure.
know what they're doing. You talk about, tariffs, that's above my pay grade. We don't know what the end goal is here. I hear what's coming out of our president's mouth, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we really have problems with Canadian giving us fentanyl and all these illegal aliens coming from Canada. I don't know. So that's why I said there's something there. It's above my pay grade. But
Yeah.
we'll have to go. But yeah, increased cost is not what anybody wants. Hopefully, the shoe industry will be a little protected. I don't know what the Canadian, um, their
Yeah.
percentage that comes from China, but as I know, it used to be about 85, now it's 65, and especially in that, a lot of that's a Nike or a
Yeah.
New
Sure.
Balance or some of the tennis shoes. I mean, even tennis shoes are most, if it's not leather, that's a 40% tariff already.
Hmm.
And now you're pretty much going to make it 50 or so. And just when I was in with Doug Becker in Italy, and he was like, okay, that shoe costs $30. Well, to me in Canada, it's a $60 shoe.
Yeah.
One, because the dollar to your, and then the tariffs that go already there. So, we can't make things more expensive for our retailers.
Yeah.
And
It gets to the point where you're pricing yourself out of the range of what people perceive as good value.
our expenses are going up. So most likely we have to pass it on to the consumer. Will the consumer, is their salaries going up enough to pay the high thing? I mean, I always say we sell shoes and it's a discretionary item, but so is going out to eat. So is going to a concert,
Absolutely. Hmm.
so our competition is not another shoe store. It's where that consumer wants to spend their money.
I love
Who
that.
would think that you spend $3,000 going to a Taylor Swift concert? Oh, I'm going to fly
But
to
they do.
Sweden. I'll ticket for $800. I'll get my hotel, my airfare just to go to a concert. Well, that's $3,000 that they spend it going there. Guess what? They might not have the money. I mean, my niece did that. So she
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of money. So guess what's going to sacrifice is her shoes. She's not going to buy as many shoes. She won't go out to eat as much. So yeah, we're
It's all
after,
around discretionary earnings and
right.
discretionary spendability, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a big thing that we're going to have to deal with as things continue to rise in price. What?
So if the cars make more expensive, maybe they'll buy shoes.
Yeah, that's what we're going for. When we think about that, what are the other sort of pain points that you're seeing that independent retailers have today, maybe more so than they did a few years ago? What are the things that are more current that you're hearing from the retailers out there saying, "Oh my gosh, I got to deal with this"?
The biggest problem we have right now is weather, climate change, whatever you want to say about it.
Yeah,
Um, you guys didn't have as much snow last year. It was
that's
you
for
had a
sure.
turn. I don't know how it was this year, but people did not. They get their boots in, and I was talking with one retailer. He got some boots in late July, and he said we've had 45 days over 100 degrees. I don't know what that is in Celsius for Canadian people,
It's
but he's
hot.
just like,
Yeah,
then why'd you get them in July? Well, that's when they sent it to me. It's like, well, just tell them don't ship before September. But for you guys, in talking with Doug Becker last year, he had
yeah,
lots of boots and he had to get rid of it. It was in one of our calls. They said, yeah, we had to
yeah.
mark down all those and get rid of it. If you're strong and you can keep it, then you can keep those over for the next year, throw them in your garage or wherever, box them up, get them out of the shelves. But, we don't all have the room either.
Yeah, it's definitely been a problem. I mean, Doug and I are in the same sort of territory, and we've had a little bit more snow this year, but winters are not what they used to be, that's for sure. And when we're buying for that mini season of winter boot, and it's a shorter season now, right? So how many do we actually need? And are people thinking, well, if I buy my winter boot, that deep winter boot, where I'm really only going to use it for, let's say a month or so in between my fall boot type thing, that winter boot lasts a long time. They don't need as many either down the road.
Right.
So it's a very interesting thing. One of the things, Mark, that I've been hearing a little bit about, and it's current for me because one of our stores is we're renegotiating our lease, and one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of different vendors out there, not only in the footwear side of things, but on some of the other people that I coach too, is that leases are going up pretty dramatically. Is that something that you're
Right.
hearing?
Yeah, because those leases that you negotiated during COVID to go down, if it was a 3 or 5 year lease, well, if it was 5 year in 2020, something was coming, or if you got concessions, guess what? That 5 year period now we're in 2025. We're 5 years now from COVID, the beginning of
Yes.
COVID. And like one of the people that bought my store, he was able to negotiate a 25% discount in rent. Well, that came up last year, and guess what? It made it one of the reasons I got out of business was because I did not want to sign that long-term lease, an extra 5 years at my age, at the price. I think I've told you my rent was going to go from $50, what I was paying, to $100 on my street. And sure enough, some fool is in there selling sunglasses. I hope he makes it. But I just go, how do you? That's $310,000 a year in rent. That's a lot of sunglasses to sell. So the leverage is gone. There's still problems with offices and people working remote and stuff. But no, for prime retail space, all those contracts are coming up now. And so that's the big problem, is that if you have those coming up and you don't have an option, you're negotiating new money. And they have the upper hand because we've recovered.
We talked a little bit about the people problem off the start of the podcast here. I mean, that's an ongoing one for all of us, and hiring, retaining, training, all of these different things as being one of the key pieces of things that we're always trying to work on. But what are some of the other things maybe that you're seeing outside of AI? Because we've chatted about AI, but what are some of the things that are really starting to maybe click that weren't clicking before? Like, what are you seeing that's working now?
I think everybody, because it was so hard getting employees,
Yeah.
people had to realize, do I have the right culture? And we talk about that a lot. Okay,
For sure.
okay, I can maybe make more money just being a teller at Wells Fargo or something like that.
Mhm.
How do I get the culture that they want to come in? Like running stores can operate off of a smaller margin, mostly 45. My store's maintained margin was 55. So when I first heard that running stores are at 45 and you're getting it, how do you survive? Well, they get more turnover. And guess what? Their employees that are working there, they're runners in most cases.
Yep.
You're a runner. Where are you going to go? To a family shoe store? You're going to go to a running store. So you go to the running store. So in the family area, we have to build the culture of our store, make it fun. Okay, every now and then take your manager out for drinks afterwards, or bring in some pastries. But know what's going on in their family, know what their family troubles are, or what's going great. Okay, it's somebody's birthday. So I think you want it to be a place where they can come in and have fun for their 8 hours or 8.5 hours, or whatever their shift is. That you have the culture that they want to be there and be long-term employees. Some of the most successful. My average employee has been here 22 years. They have the culture right. But in today's society, the younger kid, not to bash on the new generation, it's totally different. And you and I don't think that way. So we have to go back, and this is what we had from our speakers. You have to figure out what makes them tick. As my wife says, you need to learn what makes me tick, but then you also have to learn what gets me ticked off.
So yeah, I love that.
Figure out what makes me ticked, and
wise
that's
words.
It's managing people. You have to learn everybody's touch points. Okay, so all of your employees or your manager, if it goes down, if you're not in the store, or if you have multi-storage, your manager needs to be able to do that. My managers, they always in that sticky situation. They're an employee, but then they're my go-between between staff. So I needed to know, okay, there's problems that, people are mad because they're working too hard. We all have our seasons, so people can understand that. And like in my business, okay, it's April. I just need 3 more weeks and then I'll be able to take a day off. Exactly. I won't take a day off from Christmas to, we had a parade on St. Patty's Day. That was my first day off. But, I went 3 months without having a day off. But I'm the owner. I get the riches of the doing well, or, if it's not going well, that affects. But you have to make sure that your employees, and what was also with less employees working, you had to make it more fun. You had to make them want to come in. Okay, you got to handle 3 customers at a time for a sit and fit. How are you doing that? But guess what? We were talking with one of our board members. She did, I think, $12,000 with 3 employees. That's $4,000 average per employee. And we're not, the average selling price is probably $135. Yeah, so that's a lot of shoots for 3 people.
Lot.
And then to be able to get the customer service that you and I want as owners.
Exactly.
So it's building that team culture. Some people pay by team, some people pay by employee, some do a combination. I was always more, you want to get the most out of your top people. And as I said, you can't, at my store, I had A, B, C, I even had a D employee, but she was 82 years old. And guess what? She would take that 82-year-old customer that wanted to talk with somebody and, be shown at a slower pace while my top people could, sell, $1,000 worth of shoes while she's with that one customer. So you need all of your customers. And, people say, treat your kids the same. No, you have to treat them based on their personalities and based on what you have in your store that day. Because not all employees are the same. So I wanted my A employees, if things got busy, my wife and I would ring their register, let them have that employee relationship.
That's awesome, Mark. I want to, before we wrap the episode up, I want to go through a couple of the things with the NSRA. And one of the things that I think a lot of retailers enjoy is the Shoe Retailer State publication. And there's always great articles in there. There's good information on what's coming up in the industry, the events that are going on. It's a good place to keep in touch of what's happening. And that one comes out every 2 months, right, Mark?
Every 2 months, yeah. And we have a section on our next gen. One of the programs I didn't talk about was our next gen program that you and I, you're my co-chair on that. But teaching the next generation. Guess what? The vendors want good retailers in there. We had Garrett Breton of Comfort One, and he said, I got into the program with the NSRA and I realized there's other people in my same situation. But he said, I wouldn't have been in the industry if it weren't for that program. So, we were trying to teach the next generation. So there's that next generation of shoe stores to sell to.
Yeah, the next generation, such a great program. And for those of you listening, basically what it is it's a program that helps family transition from one generation to the next generation. And you know, as we're recording this just before the Atlanta Shoe Show, we have a full day event coming up at the Atlanta Shoe Show, which you'll have missed listening to this, but we've been doing that once a year for the full day live event. And then
Mhm.
we also have an ongoing biweekly group with the Next Gen program as well. So if this is something that you're in the midst of a family transition and maybe you would like to join the Next Gen, feel free to reach out to either Mark or myself too, and we
Right.
can tell you a little bit more about the Next Gen program that we're running within the NSRA. It's been really great, and we have a couple of social things around at different trade shows and meet and greet and what have you, and some education and some really good conversations about not only taking the ownership of the business as you transition into the being the owner, but also the accountability issues and the family conversations that go around them. So I think that's an awesome piece of the puzzle. And the other one, Mark, is the footwear forum. We did touch base on it, but from anybody who would like to go to this year's footwear forum, if you're listening to this in the spring here, it's in Glendale, Arizona, and the date is April 23rd and 24th.
Correct.
And I think you said basically you'd like to have everybody registered by the end of February here as we're doing it, but that's the one. And then Mark, you've got an announcement for next year's footwear forum.
Yeah, actually, you were with the first to know. Our chairman doesn't even know yet, but he'll find out in time. But yeah, next year in 2026, we'll be in Orlando, Florida, at the Hilton Buena Vista, April 29th and 30th. I know
Exciting.
for people, they'll be excited to, okay, it's been cold and okay, it's in the 50s and 60s for a high, but guess what? They'll like today, it's 80 degrees outside, but they'll like being in the warmth of the Florida. And, maybe some people can bring their kids for the weekend, have their husband or wife or spouse come down with the kids. And, Thursday through Sunday, they can do a little Disney. I mean, even our staff is going, okay, I think Friday and Saturday I'm going to stay over so I can go to Disney and Universal and
For sure.
things. But, it's always a great event for networking, looking at product, building those relationship with the vendors. You might be like, I was more of a fashion retailer, but I was able to sit down with some comfort retailers that I didn't have relationships with. And when I go to a show at Atlanta or back then Miami or, Denver, Detroit, Chicago, wherever you're going, you're always seeing the vendors, and you don't always have enough time. I mean, Atlanta's 3 days. I'd have 30 appointments, every hour and 45 minutes. It didn't give you the time to look. And I always encourage, you need time to look for new product. I have two brands. One brand I started with 60 shoes and I was selling 3,000 pair within 3 years. I have
Amazing.
another brand. I remember telling the salesman, oh, we're not going to buy this year. But then it was my top brand for 15 years, selling 3,500 pair of shoes a year. So it's like, you got to find that next one or get the new hot ones, the Hoka. It's only a 14-year-old company, but they're doing 2 billion in sales, but you can't get them always because they have enough distribution, but if you got them in the right time, and guess what? You're doing pretty well on the athletic side.
I know
You know,
that's one that we sure have been trying to get for years, but like you said, their distribution's been closed, and for our two stores, we certainly haven't been able to get Hoka, although we try every season. And I think that's
yeah,
another thing. You just got to keep trying, right? Until one
right.
day it
Well,
pops up for you.
but you go to the conference and you're
Yeah,
able to
for
sit
sure.
down and you go, hey, I'm eager every
Yeah,
year. I'm here.
they
And
know.
then finally to go, I know one of our companies we deal with, they finally got it after 5 years of trying. And
Yeah,
they have the
absolutely.
distribution, and hopefully you'll get it soon or get the other brands that you're looking for. But that's part of it. We have that time, for the vendors. You can sit down with the VP of National VP of Sales at Hoka or New Balance or Brooks or whatever, and have those conversations, and they'll go, I don't know why we're not in your stores, Pete. We should be. And next thing you know, you are, because that's what I said. That's the networking. You're building those relationships. I mean, everything's relationships here.
It is.
we have a great relationship. If we're in town, we grab a burger, or,
For
drink
sure.
together, stuff. And so those things are important, and you want to keep that up, and you never leave a bad taste in somebody's mind, or be rude to them. Treat them like people. And, at our conference, I tell our people, visit and talk with everybody, and not everything's right for your store, but you
No.
never know. You might acquire a store that, guess what? You need that product. And you're like, wow, I've blown them off all these years by not being nice to them, or, I don't need
Or
it.
here's
So
the
you,
other thing, that rep may go to a brand that you
or,
actually are involved with, which
right,
happens
right.
too, right?
I mean, I have a rep who will not be named, but yeah, 30 years ago did not treat me right. And guess what? They've had 2 or 3 brands since then. And I really refused to buy, because to me it was about character.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, it's
they weren't
amazing.
enough to, there's plenty of shoes around. The
Hmm.
best shoe of one company is the best shoe of another. In the brown markets, a lot of us,
Yeah,
they copy. Oh, well, this sells well, so let me make my version. I was looking for a shoe once, and it came out at $375. Well, I could buy it for 200. I could buy it for 150,
for sure.
135, or 90. Well, I took the 135 because that was my average price. I didn't want to go to the 90. I could
Yeah.
probably sell more, but I know I could sell the 135. But the 200, that put me in the 375. That limits my customer. So, you got to, that's why you go to shows, find out what everybody's doing. And then you select, you take your pictures, or however people buy, and, go, okay. I was amazed. My wife, she could go, oh, we've already bought that from somebody else. I'm like, oh, okay. I just liked it. But a good buyer knows what they have, and you don't want to duplicate. You can, maybe at a price point, but then why, sometimes we overanalyze. Oh my gosh, this is this. And you're like, they're not going to see the other shoe. Just get the one you like, or with the vendor you want. Maybe it's cheaper or more expensive, but get what's right for your store. First thing I did when I came to Florida, find all these retailers nearby, went to their stores, and then you know what I learned from that? I got to buy for my customer. I can't worry about my competition.
Thanks so much for being a part of the footwear retailer here, Mark. It was so great to spend some time with you, and hopefully our listeners have learned even more about the NSRA. If they want to get a hold of you to learn even more, or if they want to go online, where should they go and how should they get a hold of you?
Well, our website is nsra.org. Then you can always email me at mark@nsra.org. I do travel, go to a lot of shows, but I try to respond within 24 hours, or, sometimes it's tough. You're at a show one day, traveling the next, and you can't, but, try to get back and answer all of everybody's questions. And, that's, I get the most pleasure out of doing that. Just like you, it's great coaching and mentoring people, and giving the knowledge that we've gotten over our lives and careers to other people.
And if you want to become a member of the NSRA, I think you can do it right on the website too, right, Mark?
Yeah. There's somebody to contact. You fill out a form, and they'll get back with you. We don't
Awesome.
have the
That's great.
online capabilities, but yes, you can go online, and we'll get back with you on that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and looking forward to seeing you very soon at the next show.
Okay, great.
Make it a great day, Mark.
Okay, you too. Thanks, Pete.